All right, so for anyone who just joined us, we are looking at a case study today. This was a BRRRR property I bought a couple years ago in Norwood. So I'm going to share my screen. And you guys see the slides? Cool. All right. So yeah, this is initially a triplex that I bought a couple years ago. Looks like March 2021. It was listed at 70,000. This again was set up initially as a triplex, so it had a common stairwell, a 2-bed apartment on the first floor, 2-bed apartment on the second floor, and a 1-bedroom on the third floor. It also had a common stairwell with the laundry in the basement. Had a front porch. I added a driveway. Obviously, you don't see a driveway. This is the original picture of the listing. You can see the green space next door that actually belongs to the church behind the house. So that is a undeveloped and basically it can't be sold unless it was detached from the church parcel, which is kind of nice. And tenants pay their own gas, electric, heat, and I pay the water and trash on this property. So let's go to the photos. I had to separate them because there were so many from the slideshow itself. All right, yep, cool. You guys see the pictures? Awesome. All right, so this is kind of the general condition of the first floor when you walk in. They had these really weird closets set up. This was, I guess, kind of the living room. It had been vacant for about 2 years. This was an estate sale from a lady who had passed away. If you guys have questions that come up during this, feel free to jump in with any questions. And then obviously, if it's nothing specific about what you're looking at, then we'll go through a Q&A at the end.
Yeah, a good way to do that is on the participants button, you can do raise your hand.
Yep, absolutely. This was the kitchen in the back of the house. You used to have a little side door walking out of the back. I got rid of that. As you can see, pretty rough condition. First floor bathroom, second floor kitchen, second floor bedroom. Now this was the third floor, so you can see that it has these kind of cove ceilings. Some of these have some short angles. This was kind of the kitchenette on the third floor. Third floor living area, and third floor shower. So one thing that I was very specific about changing was the way they had this bathroom set up. Made no sense because you had about a foot of standing space here because they put it up against this angled wall. So part of the renovation was relocating that bathroom to make sure you actually had full standing room in the shower. So if you buy any properties with a third story, this is very common to have these angled ceilings. And those are things you want to be aware of, especially if you're looking at a big rehab. So this is the driveway we added after the rehab was done. We rebuilt these the porch, fixed some of the siding, we replaced all these windows, we added separate front doors. So one of the main issues with this deal was when I went to get my permits to rehab, the city said I could not renovate this to a triplex. So that was what I purchased it at. That's what it was zoned for with the county. So the auditor had it as a triplex, but the city of Norwood had it as a duplex. So that was a big pain. That really changed the dynamic of the property. And it also created a situation where now the entire upper 2 floors were combined into one apartment where I was able to add a bedroom, but now I have this massive 1,800 square foot, 4-bed, 2-bath apartment, which is kind of challenging to rent, right? And I'll get more to that at the end, but it's not ideal, right? It's not necessarily what I would look for as far as apartment building when it comes to makeup.
Hey, Joe, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Sorry, T, I didn't see your hand there. My bad, man. On the driveway, adding that, how much of a pain in the ass is that?
Well, if you have a really good concrete company to do it, it's really easy. It's just expensive. But
I'm sorry, in terms of dealing with permits and zoning and setbacks and all that.
So the city of Norwood was thrilled for me to have off-street parking here because what you can't see, let me go back. When you can't see from that picture is about 20 feet to the left here is a railroad crossing. So there's one more property on this corner and then there's a railroad crossing right here. This is technically no parking because it's in proximity to the railroad track. They allow parking there because there's literally nowhere else to park. But it's kind of one of those things where, you know, they just don't give you a ticket. The cops all know about it, but it's like, they were very happy that I added such a big parking space, even though it got rid of almost all the usable side yard there.
Cool, thank you.
All right, Tiwi.
I was going to ask, why did you opt for concrete, which I've heard is a lot more expensive than asphalt?
So with almost every decision I make, I look at the long-term effectiveness. So with concrete, I'm going to have 25 to 40 years of basically maintenance-free driveway, where, you know, maybe at worst case I have to come in and just power wash it. I plan on keeping this building until I die, basically. So when I'm doing my rehabs, I kind of do it with that in mind. If I were to blacktop this, I'd have to seal it every 5 to 10 years. I'd have to do repairs. I'd have to replace it every, you know, 15 or 20 years. So it just, you get a lot more life out of the concrete for about, you know, probably 50% more cost.
Sorry to get in the weeds, but do you remember the cost back in 2021?
So I didn't actually do this part till about a year ago, 2022, but I think the cost of all this, I replaced all the sidewalks. Yeah, we added this little walkway from the driveway. I think that was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 12, 13,000, maybe something like that. So, yeah, like, and you know, for asphalt, if I wanted to do all that with asphalt, it would probably have been like, you know, 6 or 7. So again, about 50% of the cost, but I don't want to have to deal with getting it sealed for, you know, $1,500 every 5 years or whatever. We added a wall unit AC. We do that on almost all of our 3rd story buildings. So there, we added that one here and one on the side here, just because all the heat travels from the, you know, from the upper floors or to the upper floors. So this is the first floor. When you walk in, that right door that you saw, that is so we were able to make a separated entry with a common foyer that goes to the basement. So that was why we had those 2 doors in the front. And that allowed private entrances, but also they can both get to that middle foyer to get access to the basement. So sorry, apparently a bird just flew in my house. This is the bedroom when you walk into the right. This is the other angle of that. Another bedroom. And this is the living area. So again, this is all in the 1st floor apartment. So this is a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment. This is the kitchen. This is one of the first apartments that I started switching all of our rehabs to granite. I just kind of did same thing like we were talking about the driveway. This is a very cheap slab of granite. I think all of this granite was maybe like $1,500. And when you compare it to, you know, between, for like, let's say for mica or laminate with labor, you're probably talking about like $500. So for a third of the cost, I get a better product. It looks better, it drives better tenants, and I should have a much longer life than a laminate or formica. So this is from the living room, looking at the kitchen area. Other side. We switched to stainless steel appliances. So for me, like when my rents are 800 plus on any unit, I pretty much go stainless. That's just kind of my benchmark. And you know, nowadays you don't really pay a big difference in price anyway. You might pay 50 to 100 bucks more per appliance, but you know, I think if you're at a 400 or 500 price point, stainless is kind of irrelevant. Once you're above 800, I think it's worth the money. 1st floor bathroom. Okay, so stairs were a huge challenge in this rehab. Go ahead.
For that bathroom, was that a tub insert?
Nope, that's a real tub and tile. Yep, yep, all
Okay.
tile. Yep. So the stairs in this property were a massive challenge. So one of the biggest issues in this house was major structural settling on the main beam that runs left to right in the house. We had to replace the entire main beam, which meant building temporary walls on the first 2 floors to support the weight, replacing the main beam, and we actually jacked. So you can see there's still a slight lean in this stairwell. It's hard to kind of visualize, but like this was more of the angle when I bought it. we lifted the center load bearing post of that stairwell, because it's kind of got it's like an L shape. We lifted that 2 feet to get it level. So to do something like that structurally, you're talking about moving an inch at a time, because if you move wood too quickly, it will crack. So we literally had to dig 20,000-pound jack post, bottle jacks, and lift an inch at a time for however, like an inch a day, let's say, for however many days it takes to make 2 feet. So, I mean, 24 days, I guess, right? But it was like, that was like a month process to actually level the structural load of that. I don't know if I have a good photo of it, but let me get back here. Yeah, so you see this beam here? That was an added double LVL beam. We took out some walls here. Basically, every wall you see in here was pretty much reframed. We changed the entire layout. Another massive cost and difference in this rehab versus a lot of my other ones, right where this kind of triangle shape is here, was a center fireplace that went through all 3 stories of the house. So we tore that all the way down to the basement. We also tore down a second chimney that was more like over here in the back of the house. And so that, I think, was like $3,000 or $4,000 just in demo labor, between tearing all the brick down from the roof down and hauling all that brick away. There's a lot of cost in the haul away. But that LVL, I'm sorry. So that's a double LVL beam that we added, and that's actually what we use to take that load of the newly raised center beams of the house that were now leveled. This still caused quite a bit of warping in the subfloors on the 2nd and 3rd floor, but it was significantly better than, if you can imagine, dropping 2 feet in the middle of the house. I mean, that's how bad of a structural defect this house had, which is why this one's set on the market and why I was able to get such a good price on it.
So what neighborhood is this?
Norwood. So you can see we redid all the steps. Those are refinished treads. This is kind of the L shape I was telling you about. So I don't have a good picture of it, but if you can imagine, underneath this corner of the stairwell, that's where the load bearing post came down to the 1st floor. So that's where we had to basically carry that load 2 feet upward to level out this entire platform. Tiwi?
And so for all that structural work, do you just have a handle on that, or did you consult with the structural engineer, or do you just have enough experience doing it enough?
Yeah, I mean, I know my way around it now. This particular project, we had architectural drawings that had to be engineer approved. So we didn't really consult with an engineer, but our architect has an engineer that they partner with. So he basically, looked at our plans and, stamped that, yes, these are sufficient, to fix the load issue and correct it. And this was a 6-month permitting process. So
Wow.
between all the issues I had with the zoning allowance, getting the permits, this was a 6-month process, which is why I bought it in 2021 and it wasn't done until a year ago, or not even quite a year ago, actually less than that. That's the top view. So here's the 2nd floor. So now this is let me get back. So that's that separate doorway with the foyer. So outside, that was the left door. This is a common foyer area. There's another wall here that separates, and here's the common basement steps. So all tenants share the basement, but they have separate entrances. So this is a solid wood door. This is a fiberglass door. We do that in all deadbolt locking doors. We always use solid wood just in case there ever somebody try to break in and make it a little harder. Again, these are all vinyl replacement windows. This is to the left when you come up the steps. You got your bathroom, your kitchen. It's a smaller kitchen, obviously, which is another thing that was frustrating, because now this is a 4-bed, 2-bath with a tiny kitchen. Not tiny, but smaller. And then I got a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment with a massive kitchen, right? These are the things that, the bureaucracy, made me change, that made no sense. But unfortunately, sometimes it's not in your control. Got a little dishwasher in there. Again, same thing for me. Anytime I have a 2-bedroom or greater apartment, I put a dishwasher. So just things I've kind of learned over the years. One beds and studios, I typically don't. I do have some 1-beds that are in a lot higher price point, that 800 plus price point. Those I do add a dishwasher. All these bathrooms are identical. white subway tile, just cheap tile, goes up quick, looks nice, same colors, same color floors, same color walls. We do this in pretty much all of our buildings. As you can see here, I put sub panels from the basement. I try to do this whenever I have to rewire for a couple reasons. It makes it where, you know, if a breaker trips, they can walk right over here instead of having to go all the way to the basement to do it. And if I'm going to already have to rewire the entire house, I can work off of this sub panel instead of having to pull all of my wires from the basement, pull them up 3 stories. So I actually added I added 1 sub panel in each apartment. So you can still see here how it's kind of settling to the middle. Again, it's hard to describe it, like that would have been more of your angle prior to the fix. So this is that living area. If you recall that picture with the slanted ceilings, we took obviously a lot of these walls out of the middle, but this is that same slanted ceiling. This is when you come up the steps to the 3rd floor. Another bathroom upstairs. So this is how I flipped that shower. If you recall, that shower previously would have been kind of facing this way. So we flipped it this way, and now there is still an angled ceiling there, but you have like a 3 or 4 foot walkway with full head height, and then your entire shower, you have full head height. Because in the middle of that shower is like an 8 foot ceiling. So utilizing the space, because of the way we framed it, we just added a little closet there, a little linen closet. This is the bedroom upstairs on the 3rd floor. Again, this is another wall unit we add whenever you're upstairs. Other angle, closet. More photos of the steps, concrete. Okay, so this was what I was trying to describe. This is that photo I added. So when I bought this house, there was literally no stairwell. So you see this opening here? Literally there's a ladder, and that's how they were getting in and out of the basement, was from a ladder. Like they didn't even have a staircase at all. So we opened this up. The way it would have worked, so if you see here, this is the main beam of the house running through here. This is like 3 or 4 2x12 stacked together. That's the beam. So to create an 7 something foot clearance here, we actually had to box this out further and carry the entire load of the beam around the staircase, if that makes sense. So we added some support posts under here, and this wall here is the back of that chimney I was talking about, and then there's another chimney off the picture here you can't see. Let me go back to, if you have any questions about any of the rehab stuff, you can feel free, and I'm gonna go back to the slide here. Todd, go ahead.
Did you do anything, or when you do your rehabs, Joe, on guts like this, any techniques you guys use to limit noise transfer between the units when you got top bottoms like this?
Yes. So what I had done in the past, like, so in my studio apartments in Bethel, we actually insulated every single one of those floors because there were we were so worried about noise because there were so many units so closely together. We actually did all the adjoining walls and all of the floors. Another reason why we did that was because we had to for fire blocking. So one of the ways so if you're in 5+ units, the fire code is completely different than residential. So we had to do mineral wool, which is a fire retardant insulation, and we had to do 5/8 drywall on both sides. So that created what they call a 2-hour burn rating, meaning it's supposed to take 2 hours for the fire to penetrate between units to give people time to escape, I guess. But we've done that, and we've done that with even like fiberglass insulation where it wasn't needed for fireproofing. And I don't think we insulated all the floors in this one, but we did have to do the 5/8 drywall. That was just what the city required between units, anytime we were between dwelling units. So it's relatively noise insulated because of that. You know,
Okay.
having that 5/8 drywall definitely helps.
Great, thanks.
We also do that for all of our bathrooms anywhere. Like we always insulate our bathroom walls just to keep noise down, you know, that way it's not so loud. If you have like a bedroom wall right up to a shower or something, without that insulation, you can hear like it's super loud with that water. Okay, so like I said, purchased it for 55. I think it was actually 60, and I think I had 5,000 credit from the seller, if I recall. I did this with a 20% down commercial rehab loan. So my initial down payment was only 11K, you know, on the just the actual purchase. The way the rehab loan is, they approved a rehab budget of 150,000. I have to provide, I front the money for that, and then I'm able to draw up to that 150,000. And I think I did that one with Center Bank in Milford, I believe. So I've done a ton of those with a ton of different banks, and it's a really good product. It's nicer than hard money because you pay way less interest. So something to look into if you're planning on getting into BRRRRs. So like I said, I bought this in like spring of 2021, and it wasn't renovated until like almost summer of 2022. So that was a number of factors, but the project was bigger than planned. We had a lot of COVID delays still with the labor and material shortages. Took 6 months to get permits approved, which is about twice as long as it should have. And we were also tied up on other projects. We did like 3 of these kind of simultaneously. So obviously we were bouncing back and forth between projects quite a bit. This was the biggest shocker of this deal. I had underwritten this initially at a 3 to 350 max ARV. The appraisal for this property came in at 455, which is kind of insane. I don't think I could sell it anywhere near that. The only reason it came in that high was because the only comps of that size in Norwood were 2 that sold right across the street from Brookwood. So not the same area, valued completely differently when you're walkable to the Norwood area or to the Brookwood, development. And honestly, the appraiser just did not do a very good job. It worked out really well in my favor, but unfortunately, they usually do a bad job the other way. So I was happy to take the extra money. So this one was my best BRRRR by the numbers, no doubt. I was able to pull 150,000 in cash on top of my money back on this deal. So I was all into this for about maybe a little over 200,000 with purchase and rehab. Obviously, there's some holding costs there as well. But let's just say low 2s, and I ended up pulling out about 350. So I didn't max out my loan amount, based on the 455 ARV. They gave me 75%, I think, loan to value. But I remember my check was close to, after paying off the bank, the construction note was over 150,000 was my actual check that they gave me back. So right now it cash flows about 800 a month. Obviously that's an infinite ROI since I had no money left in the deal. And yeah, so this was the number. So yeah, the 2-bed I ended up leasing for $11.95. They have a dog. I leased that out for $25 a month. They also pay a pet fee when they move in. The cool thing on this deal, apartment 2, like I said, is kind of a goofy 4-bed, 2-bath apartment, right? Not ideal. So one of the people who called me when I put this up on Zillow was a scrap metal recycling company based in Chicago that had like 15 employees on a 5-year contract with one of their recycle yards here in Cincinnati. I think it's the one on Reading Road, but it basically collects scrap metal. Long story short, they wanted to put 4 of their employees in one of each bedrooms. They were going to furnish it, and part of the deal is they're paying $500 a room. They pay the utilities and they do all the maintenance. So this was almost like a double net commercial type of lease. We also did, I think, a 2 or 3 year initial lease with like 5% rent increases built in. So that lease will renew in like May or June, and the rent will automatically go up 5%. I had planned to do this with a medical rehab facility. They were actually going to take the entire building, and they were going to pay, let me see, what is this, 32? I think they were going to pay $4,000 a month. And it ended up not working out. They found a bigger property, and they actually backed out like the week before they were supposed to move in, which was frustrating. But it all worked out. I got it leased up for $32.20 a month. Part of the deal with the commercial company though was I provided the laundry. So like I don't have coin laundry like I would in a normal duplex. I provided the machines. If they go out, I replace them. But basically they didn't want to pay the coins and have to go get coins. And honestly, I'm pretty sure all their employees are illegal. If I had to guess, they don't speak any English. And the other thing is, so with this tenant, obviously it's corporate guaranteed. They are allowed to bring employees in and out. So they can have 4 occupants max, but one guy gets a 6-month contract, he goes back to Chicago or back to wherever he's from, and then they bring another guy in, and I'm not involved in that process at all. I didn't want to be. They deal with that. If I have a problem, then they deal with it, but I haven't had any problems at all. Obviously you see the expenses, so about 800 net cash flow. All right, Tyler.
Yeah, I guess, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess when you say you pulled 150K out, I typically struggle with pulling the max out versus making the property cash flow like crazy. So I was curious to just hear how you think through that and how you came up with that number.
Yeah, so part of why I decided to pull almost the max I could out, I might have been able to maybe pull 10K more out, was because I actually did another property, the one in Clifton. We were just talking about it. You might not have been on yet, but we were talking about a student rental. And that appraisal actually came in super low. So that one came in about 50K under what I thought. So I kind of looked at it as all right, I'm getting an extra 300 a month in cash flow on this property, but I'm having to keep 50K in the deal. This one, I'm going to kind of pull out a bigger number because, the two of them together kind of offset that cost, so to speak. That was part of why I did it. Also, though, I would buy, if I could buy this turnkey and cash flow $800 a month, I would have done that anyway, So,
Right.
it worked out because I was able to get those rents so high. It worked out anyway.
But it sounds like in general, it's case by case for you too.
Yeah, my threshold minimum to even look at a deal would be a 200, what I call gross cash flow. And what I mean by that is after all my fixed expenses. So the one way I do it different than a lot of investors is I don't make up a number for maintenance and CapEx because I find those numbers to be extremely inaccurate. So I actually look at a gross cash flow number, and do I feel comfortable with that number, meaning knowing I'm going to have to pay potential CapEx or maintenance. Now, when you're looking at a BRRRR deal like this, right, everything in this property, literally other than the outside 4 walls, is brand new, right? The foundation. That's the only 2 things I didn't replace. So I should have very minimal maintenance or CapEx for the next 10 years, right? So when you're doing things like that, I'm even less concerned than I normally would be when I factor in maintenance and CapEx, because I shouldn't really have any for the foreseeable future. Tiwi?
I was wondering on the loan product you use, are they charging you interest when you do the draws every month, or is it?
Yep. So typically it is a floating interest rate, which historically never was a big deal until last year. Last year, those floating interest rates, could literally go from 4 to 8%, if you held a note for all of last year. But typically you are just paying interest on your drawn amount, right? So as you draw more money, your payment goes up. Most of these lenders give a 12 to 24 month interest only period. And then if you stay with their note, they usually convert to a traditional 25-year amortized commercial note. Now, because these were residential, I went ahead and put them on 30-year fixed when I refied, instead of staying with the bank in a long-term note, even though those automatically convert. I went ahead and just refied it out to a traditional residential 30-year fixed, because on a 30-year fix, you're going to have a lower payment typically than a 25-year amortized construction note or commercial note. But so the cool thing with commercial banks is they're it's the Wild West. If they like it, they'll do whatever you want. I have come up with some pretty creative structures. And as long as it makes sense to them, and whether that's one guy or girl or a board that approves it, as long as they approve it, you're good. And obviously with the conventional lender, they're not going to do that. It has to match every little box perfectly, and if it doesn't, then they're not going to do it.
And did the permitting take 6 months because of the complexity, or was there a backlog? Or
well, it took that long for several reasons. So a part of that, let's say the first 2 months was dealing with the zoning board, because like I said, they actually wanted me to rehab this to a single family. It got to the point where, because they were making the argument that no one lived there when I bought it, which was true. The lady had passed away, so it was an estate sale. I tried to make the argument that since it was prior use and it's most, there's like state law that basically says if a property is best suited for XYZ, you can make the argument to zoning to allow that because that's its best use, right? So I tried to fight it without like literally going to court. I tried to make the argument to the zoning board, like, look, I know you don't want this to be a triplex, but that's what it is, and that's what it was set up for. And the way this building is laid out and built and utilized, that is its best use, because I have a 3-story common stairwell that now I have to chop up into little pieces if you want me to separate these apartments or, make this less apartments or whatever. So that didn't work. They tried to make it a single family. I basically had to threaten to go to court to keep it as a duplex even. And they kind of backed off and they're like, okay, like, give us your plans and we'll work with it, kind of thing. And this was my first deal I did in Norwood. So since then I've done a few more and I've done some client rehabs and I now have a much better working relationship. One thing I found, especially in these small towns, is like I took a shithole and made it really nice and they like that. And now that bought me a lot of goodwill. So like I could actually probably go to them with the same deal today and say, hey, look, I want to make this a triplex. And I probably get a lot more leverage in that conversation because they trust me, they see my work. I tried to buy a property right around the corner from this, and like literally the building department was like, please buy this, and somebody else outbid me on it. So but when you build those relationships, it definitely helps your case.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was talking with Mark Reeves, the inspector, the other day when he
Yep.
came to the building.
That's exactly who I was dealing with for most of this.
Yeah. And it was clear, like he had like a disdain for triplexes. He was like, the Venturas or whoever bought this and they turned it into a beautiful single family from this nasty chopped up triplex. And I was like, what do you have against cash flowing multifamily?
Well, so their like charter mission statement with the building department is they want to reduce density. So that is their mission. Their goal is to take as many properties to as little units as possible. So whenever you have that situation arise, and another thing for Norwood is parking is a very big deal. There's another deal that's actually back on the market right now that I tried to buy a year ago, and learning from the mistakes of this deal, I met with the zoning board before I bought it, and I found out that they would not allow it to be rehabbed. It was actually a 9-unit. It's on Williams Avenue, by the way. So if anyone's looking at that deal, don't buy it because
I put an offer in on it and got turned down.
Yeah, well, good. You're lucky. Don't buy it. Don't buy it at all. Yeah, I could have bought it last year for 300, and I didn't after I found all this out that I'm talking about. So that is a dead deal. There's nothing anyone can do with it that's going to be productive at all, other than tear it down. But anyway, so I don't know where I was going with that, but basically I learned from that deal that you want to meet with these people preferably before you buy something, certainly before you do any renovations. Yeah, okay, so yeah, lessons learned. Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about the loan? Like, you have to start a relationship with them. Do they have to vet you to for them to trust you?
So yeah, so the first construction loans I ever did like this were through Park National Bank, and I deal with Joe Wagner, who's actually, his office is in Rookwood. I don't remember having to I didn't have to jump through a lot of hoops with them. Park is a little different. They're more like, if they like the deal, like if they think it's a safe deal for them, they'll do it. To me, they're more deal dependent than operator dependent. Center Bank is much more relationship based. That's a small bank. For anyone in here might know Ash Patel, that's his bank that he does all his stuff out of. And that's how I got connected with those people, through my relationship with him. But they are way more operator. Ash could call them and say, hey, I'm buying this address, I need this much money. And they'll be like, okay, cool. Tell us what they need the money. That's the relationship he has, right? They don't even care. I'm not saying they don't care, but they're not picking through his deals with a fine tooth comb because they know he's good for it. They trust him. They know he's going to pay the bank, right? Park is much more I don't care how good you think you are. If this deal is not nice, we're not doing it. That's that they're much more like that. But anyway, all that's to say, my first deal was with Park. It was a good deal. Pretty simple process. I actually like working with Park a little bit better because they're a little quicker giving you your draw money. I've just had less delays with them. And I didn't have a big track record, you know. I mean, I might have talked about like the couple deals I'd done at that point, but they were not anything like this as far as substantial rehab. And I know that I remember the deal you did in Walnut Hills, man. I mean, that was a massive rehab. Like you jumped into a deal like this that was, you know, significant. And those are the type of deals where you have to be able to demonstrate yourself and the deal itself. You know what I mean? You kind of have to put the
Yep.
story together for the bank that both are going to work out. So yeah, but yeah, it's, back to your question. Yes, it's relationship based. Having a track record, having done multiple deals now with these banks, of course that helps. But you have to get to that point, right?
And then what was the interest rate for the 24 months?
Yeah, so I think these were both 18-month interest only. And when I say both, I meant this and the Florida student rental. They were both 18-month interest only. I think they were like 4.5%. I mean, you know, you're talking almost 2 years ago now. So, I mean, of course, those today are probably 7-8%. All right, so back to lessons. You know, I think that everyone should be willing at some point in their career to take on some of these big rehabs. The first couple I did, I didn't have a big construction company or a ton of rehab experience. Obviously they're more risk, obviously they're harder, they're more involved, but I think most real estate investors can do this. Would I say you should do something like this for your first deal? Probably not. But if you've done a couple deals and you've done some rehabs, I don't think it's a big leap to try to take on a little bit more involved rehab. And as you can see, this is like what I've done for the last 7 years. I've done like 10 of these types of deals. Like these have really big upside, especially if you execute them properly, right? So you have to look at it like any other investment. Yes, there's more risk, but there is more reward. And there's so much less competition. I mean, this was in 2021. As we all know, 2021 wasn't a slow market. Like the market was still red hot, and this deal set for 40 days before I was able to buy it. When you're doing a big deal, like, yeah, go ahead, Ben.
That was an auction that you got it at?
Nope, this was just regular listed on the MLS. It was just an estate sale, but yeah, just regular listing. Just no, I think people looked at it, they saw the 2-foot sinkhole in the middle of the house, and they're like, I'm not touching this, you know. And honestly, that was like a week of work. That was like, you know, a few $1,000s. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, again, that's me doing it with my guys at cost. But even if you had to pay somebody, that's like a $10,000 thing. I mean, it's not a deal breaker if you know what you're doing, you have the right people. It's not, don't be afraid of things like that. Anything I've learned in real estate, anything can be fixed with money. And you have to understand that. To understand the numbers, like I just said, don't be afraid of it, factor that in. You know, I would have definitely paid $10,000 more. I would have paid $50,000 more for this deal. So just factor that into your numbers. Try to plan for the unexpected. So what I mean by that is like, I should have known buying this in a COVID environment that it was going to take me 2 weeks to get my lumber package delivered. It was going to take me 4 weeks to get my drywall, you know, order delivered. Like there's so many things that added massive delays to this. And honestly, like looking back at the environment of the economy and where we were, like that stuff was my fault. Like those are all things that, you know, I had this naive expectation that this was going to be like a 6 to 9 month rehab, and it wasn't. It was more like, you know, probably 14 months. So those are things that I should have planned for better. Like I said, meet with the building department before you buy. Don't wait until you buy that property on Williams and find out you can't rehab it and you can't do anything with it. Make your product nicer in competition. I say this all the time, but you know, you guys saw the level of rehab. I mean, I'm not saying you have to do every property like that, but if that's your property and the guy down the street is the same price with a much crappier quality, even if you're at the same price point, you're going to get a better tenant. It's not always necessarily just the dollars. It's how good is your tenant? How easy is your tenant? If you're self-managing, especially, that is critically important that you have good tenants. Find their ideal, don't get stuck in analysis, don't be afraid to expand your area. This is something I constantly talk about. My journey of real estate has constantly been opening up my, areas that I'm willing to invest in. And that's allowed me to find more and more deals that I otherwise would not have found. Todd?
Hey, Joe, thinking of this project and then some of your other rehabs, can you think of like a mistake that you made along the way, that, financially or planning when you're going into these, that it is something that, a rookie or even somebody that's got one or two under their belt, might be a more common mistake that people overlook or underestimate, that you looking back, you're like, well, now I'd never make that mistake, but it really, hurt my wallet back then, or something you just didn't factor that now you're like, I can't believe I did that,
Yeah, so some of the big things that I feel like people underestimate, myself included, I'm guilty of this many times over, is the cost of demo. Like when you're talking about a property like this, 3,000 square feet full of crap and trash and plaster, where they got to sit there and pull every single piece of lath off of this property. I bet I spent $15,000 in demo on this, and probably another 7,000 in dumpsters. I mean, it's just things like that. Obviously we all think about demo, but like I probably, when I did my budget, I bet I could find it somewhere. I bet my budget for demo on this was like $7,000 and maybe 3,000 for dumpsters. And I was probably double that. So demo is a big one, and drywall costs have gotten extremely expensive too. Like when I first started doing real estate, you could find a really good finish crew to hang and finish for $15 a sheet. I don't know if anyone's priced drywall lately, but it's like most people are paying like $45 a sheet, and that's not even expensive. I mean, that's like average. I'm lucky that I have a really good sub crew that I've given, hundreds of thousands of dollars of work to, and I get pretty good prices, like somewhere between 25 and $30 a sheet. But that's, that is something that most people can't do. And so understand that going in, three-story, 3,000 square foot house, I bet that was a 450, 500 sheet project. I mean, so you can do the math, and if you're paying $45 a sheet, I don't even know. I don't even want to know what that is, but I'll do the math. Let's just say 450 even. I mean, that's 20,000 just to hang and finish a drywall, right? And I guarantee you most people would not consider that without really doing the math on it. Yeah, so Norwood is like a perfect example of like, look for areas ongoing investment and development. I mean, they're doing like 3 massive developments right there. In the past 15 years, they've done, dozens of massive developments in Norwood. Norwood is like the prototype example. Like when I talk to clients out of state of like, this is the city with their shit together. They're moving things in the right direction. Like if every little small town was as progressive as Norwood was when it comes to redevelopment, like Cincinnati as a whole would be a much better place. They're not perfect. There's still pockets in Norwood that are kind of rough. There's a lot of ingrained, generational residents there that are kind of rough. But what they're doing from a high level government view is, I think they're doing a lot of things in the right direction that a lot of other cities are missing out on. And like I said, renovations never go as planned, so try to plan for that. I know that's easier said than done. Don't expect to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Even with all the experience I have, I still make mistakes on every single project I do. I've also learned that like come up with a worst case number, like think of everything you can think of, and that's your worst case number, and then add 25%. And that'll get you closer to what it's really going to be, especially in this environment with long lead times on materials and labor shortages. You probably want to add 20% to your holding time. Those are smart things to do. And that's again after your worst case. Hey, what's the worst case scenario is none of that happens and you're right on budget. Well, you just say 20% or whatever, right? So I think that's a good way to look at it. All right, what other questions do you guys have, if any? Hopefully I covered that well enough.
Could you talk about just how you screen your contractors for this big of a job? Because I don't know if you remember, I got kicked in the dick on my electrician for that massive rehab.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
So
and
good.
sorry, side note, guys, if you're curious, my second property was this size of a rehab, so it is possible.
Yep, and I remember that. That was a really big job. So I'm fortunate where I have a GC company, right? So I'm working with guys over and over and over, and that is certainly a competitive advantage. But one thing that I would add to that, because I've talked to a lot of newer investors and clients, and they're like, well, yeah, you can do this because of XYZ, right? Like I get that pushback a lot when we talk about projects like this. And it's like, yeah, but how did I get here? I got here because I did, A, B, C, D, and E that anyone can do. Like I didn't just walk into my first deal and do a $150,000, $200,000 rehab. So that would be my, response to that objection. But I think you have two options when it comes to any contractor. You either have a really good GC that you're going to pay a lot of money to deal with all the bullshit that I just talked about, or you're going to try to level up your game to where you as an operator have enough volume to build really strong relationships to clients. So I think I have a video about contractors on my YouTube channel if anyone's, and I talk a lot more about that specifically. But it's like Ben, you're like the prime example because you're an agent now. You're doing your own investments. You probably have your own ongoing maintenance stuff. I assume you probably don't want to do all of that work by yourself all the time. So like using you as an example for this question, you would be the type of person who could start building those relationships. And even if it's not you personally hiring somebody, if you're an agent and you're referring one electrician to 50 people and you're getting them a ton of work and now they're not having to do marketing. And I mean, obviously we know right now everybody's busy in the construction world, but it's like building that relationship just by doing that will add value to yourself as an investor, where when it is time for you to come, call that electrician, they're going to pick up their phone, right? I have so many people that I built relationships with where even if I don't personally do a ton of business with them, I have made them a lot of money through my relationships and my network, and they still value our relationship because of that, if that makes sense. So I think really those are the two only like guaranteed ways. And I'm not saying guaranteed, but you know what I mean? Like the only two high percentage chances of building good relationships is either hire a GC that already has them and pay for that, for those contacts and expertise, or try to build those relationships yourself. What else?
Do you upgrade to the solid like plywood cabinets, or do you just use the particle board stuff in stock down at Home Depot?
Yeah, so we use Unity cabinets and granite based in Fairfield, and they do an MDF front with a plywood box. So they're like a mid-grade cabinet, but they're soft close. The white shaker, same, just like I just talked about. If you do enough volume with Unity, you'll get really good pricing. It took us a handful of projects, but we started getting wholesale pricing through them. So I personally do not like any of the off the shelf stuff at Home Depot or Lowe's. For the price and the quality, it's just not worth it, in my opinion. Unity, I get a better price for a better cabinet.
How many cabinet projects did you have to purchase through them before you got like wholesale prices? Because I actually shopped them for cabinets and it didn't pencil out for me. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that my initial conversation to them, I was kind of a sales pitch where I was like, and if I'm sure you probably know Anderson Morgan, Ben, but he's one of the guys in the Joe Fairless group. But anyway, he initially was using them and referred me to them. But I think I had a conversation with one of their managers, and I was like, look, I'm buying rental properties. I'm doing a lot of renovations. I'm a real estate agent. I have a lot of clients who do renovations. If you were willing to work with me on price, I'm happy to refer you, customers. And I think they may be starting me out with like a 15 or 20% discount. Then as I kept buying and kept buying and kept buying, and every time I'd buy, I would say, hey, is there any way we could do a better price on this? Hey, I mean, literally every time I did that. And then finally, after like 5 kitchens, I think I got all the way down to like 60% off their like retail price, which of course is like not what they're paying, you know. I mean, that's what they, from what I'm told, that is the best pricing they will give is 60% off. But like, you know, these are flat box from China. I mean, these are probably $200 maybe all in their cost, and they're selling them, you know, for me with my discount at $400 or whatever. I mean, so they're still making a killing off these things, but they make you feel better when they tell you you're getting a discount anyway. All right, cool. Well, if there's nothing else, then let's jump into our updates. Any other general questions, conversations, anybody wanted to cover before we do that? No? All right, cool. All right, DJ, you want to give us an update?
Sure, yep. Just from personal goals and everything, I finished the raising capital book and started just another random book for on the business side. I did offer on the Williams. We were the second. We have a backup offering, so I'd be curious to pick your brain on that a little bit at some point outside of this call. But yeah, we're, you know, again, the goal is to buy 5+ unit by the end of the year. So and then I found a great partner, so we're clicking as far as, you know, we've got a lot of, you know, common, you know, direction and everything, but, you know, I'm more conservative and he's the opposite, so we push each other well. So far it's penciling out well. As far as asks from the group, I did a lot of Googling on that Williams property about underwriting mixed use. If anybody has any, you know, resources or guidance on underwriting mixed use, I'd love to, you know, talk to you about that.
Yeah, so just briefly what I'll say on that property, you know, again, I don't want to get too into the weeds with it, but yeah, so when I met with the zoning board last year about it, they would not allow it to be, the max renovation allowance was 4 units. They also were going to require us to demo a portion of the building for off-street parking because it was not allowed to have street parking because of the school.
Yep.
And they don't want any tenants parking on the residential part of the street. So they had a lot of really strict stipulations. So I think what happened, I tried to look up what the dude bought it for who's selling it now. But so yeah, I offered 300. We lost our contract. That's when I found out about all this, and we withdrew our contract anyway. And then that dude got it for 385. And yeah, whatever it was. And actually a couple wholesalers have tried to sell it as well. And I think what's going to happen is somebody who doesn't know about this is just going to keep getting stuck with it. And what happened is that dude bought it, didn't do any due diligence, and now he's trying to dump it because he's stuck.
Yeah, he wouldn't. So we offered lower just because he would not, or he wasn't accepting an inspection contingency of any kind or anything like that.
Oh, really? Oh,
like something shady here. So
yeah, and that building's a mess too. One whole side of the brick.
it is. Yeah, we walked through it. Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't get it. Dodge that one.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate the info on that.
Yeah. All right, Angela.
Yeah, so since our last meeting, went ahead and made a couple of offers, and we actually got one accepted this morning. So I'm under contract officially. Thank you guys. Super excited. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, we were getting a little frustrated, underwriting every week, making a few offers, not getting anything accepted. But finally, this one worked out. There's going to be a duplex, which we plan on house hacking. Obviously, we still got to go through our inspections and closing and all of that, right? We got to get it to the finish line, but I'm not anticipating anything major. It is in pretty awesome shape, in my opinion. And we'll keep you guys updated, but again, super excited. And we'll see how it goes. So that's my update right now. So gotta go through all that whole process. That's what I'm gonna be focusing on. And on the reading side of things, I'm a little behind. I've been snowboarding way too much. So yeah, I know, right, Jay? But things are going well. So again, I appreciate the accountability, the support from the group, and I think this mastermind has definitely helped a lot, and it keeps helping every time. So thank you guys for showing up.
And I want to brag on Angel a little bit because I'm working with him as his agent on that deal, and his fiance was able to basically win us the deal because she went to a private school that the nunnery owns the house that is selling it of that school. So of course that's a very unique situation, but I think it was her idea. If I recall, she had the idea to write a letter. Yes. So she said, hey, do you think it would help if I write a letter to them? And I'm like, absolutely. And that's just something that, even though that's a unique situation, I've done that on deals. It can be used not outside of that single context. And the agent specifically told me the reason why they went with our offer over higher cash offers was because that the personal connection of that. So it's just something to think about. Even in this world of investment, you never know who your seller might be. You never know what their motivations might be. So it never hurts to put a little personal touch. I don't do
Yeah.
it as much on written offers, but I do it on direct mail. So if I read a handwritten or like a typed direct mail letter, I try to make it very personal. I literally put a picture of me and my family, my kids, and that's like very personal, but I do it especially because I'm targeting older landlords. But that making them realize you're not just some iBuyer in California is a really good way to separate yourself, even if you're trying to buy investment property. So anyway, I want to
Yeah.
brag on Angelo and his fiance. They did a really great job with that, and that definitely helped us win that deal. So
Yeah, and the crazy thing was they actually came back with a counter and they say, hey, you know what? We think your offer's too high. We don't think it's going to appraise. This is all we want. And there's a couple of other things that we worked out, right? But it worked out pretty awesome.
yeah,
So we'll keep you guys updated.
yes, yeah, congrats again, man. That was an awesome deal.
Thank you.
Congrats, dude. That's awesome.
Thanks.
All right,
Where
Todd.
at where at in the city are you? Sorry.
Hartwell.
Nice.
Yep, they're just south of Wyoming. It's like a super quiet, nice little street with these awesome houses. Like I think it's like the old school, like doctors' houses, like 100 years ago, because of like the big lots, the big houses. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, what I've noticed is they're pockets, right? Like this one in particular is just 1 block away from Wyoming. So it kind of looks just like it, but of course, the school district, all of those things are not the same, right? Then you go to some other areas that are rougher, right? So you just got to know where you are. So
Awesome, Todd.
All right. Yeah, Angelo, congrats, man. I feel your pain because our first house hack, we looked, I don't know, probably like 6, 7, 8 over like a 6-month period. Thought we'd never find one, but we actually found one and it worked out. So congratulations. I know how to get the weight off your shoulders. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for you. But yeah, mine's short and sweet. I think I got about a week and a half left of the real estate agent classes and put that to rest, send my certificates over, and then hopefully schedule my test and be done staring at a computer screen for a while other than this meeting. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Tiwi.
All right, so I've been working out. I am back on the bandwagon. The Peloton is out of storage and in this room, so hitting that 3 times a week. With my refinance on my 10 unit, I'm waiting for the third-party reports. They were supposed to be due today, but they're dragging their feet. So hopefully tomorrow I'll get some good news as far as the appraisal and the property condition assessment report. Or if not, we'll just deal with whatever the next issue is. Been driving a lot more properties for dollars. So drove Mount Healthy, looking at some multifamily up there. Ash Patel talked about Hamilton in a recent podcast. I went up to Hamilton, checked that out, put one more property on the off-market list, trying to curate a list of properties that are off-market or kind of were failed listings before. Drove Norwood, found there. I too walked by the Williams property and peeked inside. it just looked like such a big mess, and I wasn't up for it after my 10 unit. So good luck on that one, DJ. And
Texting my partner right now, told him that it's gone.
yeah. And then, still just taking a peek at some on-market properties, which just doesn't seem viable. Like I literally saw a 12 unit that had a rents at like 900. I underwrote it. Maybe it was worth 1.1. You're not going to believe this. They wanted 3 million for it. So just craziness out there, just like making me move Zillow pricing. So hopefully the refi closes and I can kind of go back over that failed listings list I've curated and reach out to some people directly.
Also, so one thing I'd add is Tyler, who was in here before, who had to jump off. He is an agent as well, but he is based in Hamilton and he has property up there. So if you ever have questions about Hamilton, he would definitely be a good contact to talk to. He's in the Facebook group.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, Gage.
Yeah. So over the weekend, in terms of the house that I'm in right now, ripped out most of the old carpet except for the carpet in this room. And decided, I think last time I talked to you guys, I said that I was gonna put carpet down again. I have actually changed my mind. So I've got LVP. And that was one question I was gonna ask, if anybody had any experience or if it would be a waste of my money and time to get the soundproof underlayment. Like I said, the main reason why I wanted to do carpet again is to block the noise barrier, kind of create a more of a noise barrier for the people downstairs. But I looked into that underlayment, and from like the reviews I saw, it says that it does a spectacular job of really cutting the sound transfer out. So that was my plan, is to buy underlayment and put it under the LVP, which has its own kind of underlayment attached to it. So if anybody has any experience with that, hit me up. Other than that, I got my appraisal back for the duplex here. It came in slightly under, quite a bit under what I was hoping for. So Tiwi, I hope that yours goes better than mine. But it came in at 140, which really at an 80% LTV limits my ability to really get into a livable place in Cincinnati that's a duplex or larger. So I'm rethinking my strategies on that. Joe already knows everything I'm saying. I talked to him earlier on the phone today. One thought that I'm thinking is possibly just going since the inventory right now for small multifamily is so low, possibly looking at the single family side, because it's just a big goal of mine to get to Cincinnati. So I might, even though I know Brandon Turner says, when you're doing the stack method, never go smaller. At least that he does in the book I'm reading. I might have to break that rule with the current conditions, but still rolling, still going crazy. Just, I feel like I'm on realtor.com every 30 seconds. I check it like way too much. I'm addicted kind of now. It's like Facebook. So yeah. And I'm hoping to get my rehabs done in this upstairs unit by March 15th. And be out of here. And then in terms of personal, I ran my first 10K over the weekend. And that was a really cool experience. I've been training for that a lot, and that was awesome. So
Awesome, man. Congrats.
thanks.
Are you saying the max you could pull out of the property is 112, or did I misunderstand?
Yeah, at the 140 value and an 80% LTV for a cash out refi, it was like 112,000.
That you could pull out in cash.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that wouldn't be enough for a down payment and some rehab on a duplex or triplex in Cincy?
So that was the other strategy, I guess, but I am not wanting to lock myself into a place for a year. And I think with the new, like if I was to do that, I would have to get a conventional loan to cover the rest of the cost. And then that would lock me in to having to stay there for a year. If I was doing it that way. And I want to continue the BRRRR method and be able to grow my portfolio faster, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I think his plan was to, I think his plan, if I understood you correctly, Gage, was that you wanted hopefully put enough cash to buy something a little cheaper and rehab it and then refi instead of having to just have a down payment. Yeah. All right, cool. Josh?
Yeah, so I was working on that 4-unit off market deal, and kind of continued the conversation there, and she sounds like she's bounced over to another offer. So I don't know, I gotta kind of keep pinging her. She tells me what she needs, and then the next day it changes. I think that's just part of it when you're dealing directly with the seller. The people don't know what they want. So kind of still working on that. For the 9-unit property that I'm trying to work with, I think I've got to a point where I've gone as far as I can as far as tentative underwriting without some more information from the seller. And when we first talked on the phone, he wasn't too interested in giving out a lot of information. He basically said, come back with a number. And I said, okay. So kind of tried to triangulate as much as I can from, public records and knowing the market in this area. So I'm gonna try and get back to him this week and say like, hey, we can kind of be in this range, but now I need some information from you. And assuming there's some potential there, then we'll start a process of having to find some investors and things to do on that property. So I don't know, either way, it's a learning experience, even if nothing comes out of it. On the handyman business startup thing, that's been going pretty good. I think we've done about 5 different jobs now. So that's been, actually, we've gotten about as busy as I almost want to be with very little marketing. But my current frustration is that people seem more interested in having painting done than other things. And there's nothing I hardly hate more than painting. So I don't know, part of it, I guess, but we'll see. So that's been good. I could definitely see where within a couple months have to decide whether or not to try and hire somebody on to grow it to the next level or not. But I think that'll be hard too. So
I feel your pain on the painting, Josh.
yeah, I just hate it. But it's pretty good money actually, because there's like not a lot of materials. And other people hate it a lot, so they're willing to pay for it. So that's the current goal, is just some cash. So in that respect, it's good. As far as quality of life, that's not as great. But
Hey, Joe, you mind if I ask a quick question of Josh?
Yeah.
Josh, I was just curious, how did you reach out initially to the people that you contacted directly? Did you go the direct mail route and then follow up with phone calls? Or I know you mentioned the public records. I was just curious your techniques that seem to have worked thus far.
yeah, so well, for the 4-unit, I actually found her number. I find that it's, at least I can usually find someone's home or cell phone number if you look enough. And then these properties were both owned by their LLC. So with the business record search and enough kind of Google sleuthing, you usually find an address or a phone number that's been working. So that's actually how I found both of their numbers. The 4-unit, I reached out to her 6 months ago and said, hey, our easement says we share the driveway repairs. I'd like to split the cost of repairing this. And she goes, oh, I don't want to repair it. I'm selling it. And I said, oh, okay, forget the driveway. Let's talk about the property. And then same thing with the 9-unit. I just found his cell phone number, gave him a call, introduced myself, and off we went.
Nice.
But I haven't done anything like at large scale. So it's been more like, I want that property. And then with enough Google sleuthing, I've been able to find their contact info.
Sweet. Congrats. Hope it works out.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Ben.
Yeah, hey, so yeah, I've just been networking like crazy, and I'm getting some returns on that. So that feels great, because I've been to 3 networking things today. I guess an ask for the group is, sorry, on the personal side, trying to keep in shape. So signed up for a Spartan. It's kind of like a Tough Mudder. So that's coming up in, I think, May. And then also starting a off-market lead generation thing. And also learned a new way to do a creative loan structure today. And then ask for the group is, my wife and I are trying to buy a personal house for ourselves, and I'm worried. I'd love to buy a investment property, but I'm worried that's going to ding my credit. So my thought is, personal house has to come first before I turn around and buy an investment property, so I don't ruin my credit and ruin the whole process there. If anybody has any ideas or knows of a way, but that, of course, you can buy all cash. But if you know of a way that's not going to hurt my credit, I'd love to hear that. And then the offer is, I'm an agent. Also have a property management and construction background. If anybody, feel free to hit me up if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, as far as the not getting your credit pulled, I've only seen a couple things. So obviously owner financing, you don't necessarily need to get your credit pulled if you can find a deal like that on the personal or investment side. The other thing I've done in the past is if I know I'm buying like 2 properties at the exact same time, like within like a couple of weeks of each other, I've had multiple lenders sign off on, I get 1 credit file pulled and I can literally give them, so the lenders get a different report than what you get. You can have that report shared from lender to lender, and you can also give them like a direct copy of like, whatever your TransUnion. So if you're like trying to buy them within like a month of each other, that may be an option. That way you only get your credit hit once, because that's honestly my biggest problem. My number one credit issue I've ever had in my entire life is the amount of times I've had my credit pulled. I've had it pulled so many times in a year that it dropped me 100 points, and it took like another year. Went from like 800 to 700. It took like another year to go back to 800, which is frustrating because it actually knocked me out of getting prime rates on a couple deals because, I just had my credit pulled so many times. And it's frustrating. It's like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm getting approved for all these loans, but it's like you buy 3 properties and you refi 3 more. That's 6 credit pulls right there. So anyway, all that's to say, those are a couple things I've learned to try to work around that, and especially if it's like a commercial lender, I've never had them care about that at all. Like I can literally scan them a copy of my credit report and they're like, okay, yeah, you're good, we'll put it in the file. Obviously conventional lenders, you got to jump through a little more hoops.
Cool, thanks.
All right, cool. Yeah, so updates from me, that condo deal, if anybody saw that video I put out, doesn't look like it's going to happen. I had the contract for about a week, and the night before our inspections, the seller called me saying that instead of our initial agreement with 10% down payment, he wanted like an extra 30,000. When you factor that, so that would have been like almost a 15% down payment. When you factor that plus all the money I was going to have to pay cash for rehabs, it would have ended up being like over $300,000 out of pocket on just this one deal. And I literally told the guy, I'm like, look, like I can go to my commercial lender, put 20% down, get all of my construction funding, and I'm going to be out of pocket on this like 150, 180,000, like half. I was like, it's like a 5% ROI if you want me to give you that much cash plus pay all of this cash out of pocket for rehabs. Because the problem with the note was they wanted a 5 to 10 year period, right? So it's not like I could just go put 300K in cash and then refi it next year. Like I have to wait 5 years to refi this. That's the deal. So I think he just got cold feet and almost like wanted to create an almost like adversarial situations for me to just back out of it. The guy's in the 70s. I told the dude, I'm like, look, like I'm not going to fight you on this. I'm not going to try to take you to court and force you to sell this. If you don't want to sell it, like that's fine. We'll just move on. So that's what, that's ultimately what we're going to do. Because basically I offered to just buy it outright, because at that point the owner financing is a liability for me. But the whole reason why he wanted the owner financing is because he doesn't want all this capital gain in 1 year. So it's kind of like he wanted his cake and wanted to eat it too. And I'm like, you can't get all the money up front and then collect a note for 7 years. It doesn't work. So anyway, it doesn't look like it's going to work out. I'll stay in contact with the guy. I told him I was friendly about it. I'm like, look, things change 6 months, a year from now. I'm here. I'm always buying. You got my number. So I'll follow up on that. One thing Ben was talking about is the SMS texting, that I put in the video as well. That's something Dylan Koch put me onto. And it's very expensive. So it sounds great and it is great, but if it's not something you're going to do at volume, it's not cost effective to do it for a handful of deals or whatever. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, that is what I was using to get a hold of direct to sellers. And I have about 5, I would call warm leads, meaning I'm in contact. They want to sell. We're having those conversations outside of that condo deal that obviously doesn't look like it's going to pan out. I haven't closed any other deals, so we'll see. It's like $500 a month though, just for the service. Plus you pay for your list, plus you pay for the skip tracing. So, it's pretty expensive. If you were going to cap out your maximum allowed like cold text, meaning initial contacts, it would be like, I did the math the other day. I don't know, maybe $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month if you were going to max out your contacts. So it's expensive. And, I'm going to try for a few months. If I don't get any leads, I'll probably quit, but I want to at least give it a few months to see what traction I can get and pull a few different types of lists and work those lists. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to connect with me. Otherwise, everything else is progressing well. 28 units coming along, finishing up 2 other apartments there. Working on my rehab on my house. That's kind of been my biggest pain in the ass. And outside of that, everything else is moving along as planned. So any other questions, final thoughts?
It's funny you mentioned that about your property there, Joe. That's exactly what happened with the 4 unit. Is when we first started talking, her whole thing was she's selling properties each year to avoid capital gains. And I said, great, I have the solution for you.
Yep.
And she was all on board. And then all of a sudden she's like, hey, well, I got another offer with, with a large down payment. And I said, well, I could come up with a down payment. Like, we structured this whole thing based on what you said. So if your strategy has changed, like,
yeah,
I'm happy to work with you. I just got to know.
Basically, this guy wanted like 25% down and owner financing. And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
No, like that makes no sense to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. So Tiwi, what you were gonna say something?
I think I just found it funny because I saw another multifamily a couple months ago where the guy had advertised 25% down for seller financing. I'm like, well, a bank may not even want 25% down. So like, what are we?
No.
But I was going to ask, if you're in a situation where you're not an agent, but you'd like to make a seller financed offer to the seller, like, how do you structure that so that your agent who's representing you is still compensated for that?
Yeah, so they actually get paid at closing out of your down payment money. That's how that works. I've done that before. I've been an agent on client buyers selling, or buying. So that like, let's say you're doing 10% down, which is kind of standard, typical on. I mean, obviously you can do anything, but that's pretty typical on owner financing deals. 10% down. There's a lot of reasons for that. I don't want to get into, but if it's a $50,000 or a $500,000 deal, you're doing 50,000 down, then and the agent's making whatever 9,000 or whatever it may be, or whatever the number is, that would come out of your down payment money.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? All right.
Hey, Joe, what was the second software you used for the? I can't find my notes for it. What was it? Besides PropStream, what was the second?
Yeah, PropStream is how I pull my list and how I skip trace. Launch Control is the SMS program.
That's it.
That's what I use. Yep, for the SMS. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Josh, I just saw your message. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we definitely, if you find another deal, we can definitely have a conversation, especially now because I'm not buying this deal. So yeah, just hit me up if you find another one. All right, guys. Well, it was awesome seeing everybody. Hopefully did you guys like that? The case study, was that helpful? Feel free to give me any feedback. Be honest. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. If there's something you like, didn't like, let me know. I'm happy to do, kind of sporadically do those on some of the other deals. And obviously every deal has its own unique kind of lessons learned, but if that's something you guys enjoyed and got value out of, I'm happy to do more of those. If there's a better format for it, feel free to give me any feedback you have.
I did have one question
sure.
about that.
Yeah.
If you were to just go with if like a contractor, say you're looking at doing something like that yourself, what around cost would that be to do a full, have a contractor go in there and do that?
Well, so you mean like somebody GC a project like that?
Yeah, essentially, if you didn't want to do the work and you wanted to hire it out.
Yeah.
what
So
would that
my GC fee, or not my GC fee, but my typical margin on like a major renovation project is usually about 40%. So if like our all-in, let's just say the all-in cost, my all-in cost was 100,000, then you're gonna probably pay me about 40,000.
Okay.
And that's a rough number, but it varies slightly depending on what all, I mean, there's a lot of variables, but that's a general number. But that also, just to keep in mind, I'm paying my insurance, all my employees' insurance, I pay for all the gas, I pay for all the equipment, I pay for the vans, like that all comes out of my overhead of that number. So that's not like my net profit number, but just so you have a general idea, that's around what, like, I'm friends with a lot of other GCs. That's about where all of us operate. Some things might be 20%, some things might be 50%, but somewhere in that range is where you're going to fall. But like, let's use that deal as an example, right? Knowing everything I know now, if I could have hired me to do that and I didn't have to do all the bullshit, would I have paid an extra 40%? Absolutely. I would have done that in a heartbeat. And even if I could have hired, just clone myself to do it and me not have to do it, I would have paid the extra 40% because it was such a pain in the ass, so it's like, obviously that's a different situation, but I think a lot of times it's worth it. It's worth that cost. And it's obviously easy to say that, being in that seat, but it's like, I don't think people understand how much bullshit goes into like a big project like that. It is very frustrating, time consuming, expensive. I mean, just, it's nothing fun about it, other than the reward at the end. All right, cool guys. Well, I will see you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, feedback is, you have like a whiteboard behind you or something. If you could go through like a pro forma or just like a scope of work, and you just break down the project of like your demo and carpentry, tile, and you could just like,
I have spreadsheets that I would have had. Like, I have them all saved in my Google Drives. So I have spreadsheets of like what I
projected and then
projected
that's what
and
it was
did.
actually.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Helpful and help us
Yes.
and just seeing that and help us visualize that. I think that'd be helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
idea.
and maybe some like rules of thumb for this area for when you're
Yes.
kind of estimating, because
Okay.
that's hard to find like local, hey, I know I can get tile done for whatever dollars a square foot or something.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah,
That could be super helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, the 15 and then $45 a sheet for drywall is helpful because, like, I think I speak for a lot of guys when you don't really know when you talk to 3 different guys and all of them are at $60 to $75 a sheet on drywall, and you're like, whoa, I guess 60's I guess that's good. I guess I'll go with that one, and then you don't know you're getting duped, right?
Well, I will say, when it comes to drywalls, like, the size of the job is a massive factor. So like, you should not be paying $75 a board for a 500 sheet project.
No, that was an example. Yeah.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
I'm not going to pay those numbers.
Yeah. That is, obviously everything in construction is context and nuance, but it's like, in general, and this from your big projects, like the more you're doing, the cheaper it should be per whatever unit of measurement, right? And drywall is a big one of those. Like, the drywall this room I'm in right here would be like $1,500, but to drywall 10 of these rooms would be, $4,000, right? So it's like, it doesn't proportion, the same as at all. But yeah, anyway, I'm happy to break that down more. I have spreadsheets. That would probably have been a good idea. I didn't think about it. But like I said, we'll be back on the 8th. I'm going to try to get an interview lined up for the 8th, and I will announce that when I have it scheduled. And But yeah, we'll sprinkle these in, and like I said, any other comments, feedback you guys have, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to hear it. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. If I suck at something, feel free to tell me. I'm happy to try to get better at it. So cool. I will see everybody in 2 weeks. Good luck, happy hunting, and I'll see you then.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.